Hi, Ericka. Thank you so much for coming to this episode, and I really appreciate it for you taking the time out for me and my audience and being in this show. So, how have you been today?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad to be here. I'm excited that we're here at this day.
Yeah, super excited. We've been planned out for a few weeks now to do the podcast recording, and finally we got together. So yeah, super excited to learn more about you, like your experiences, how you get into like a business coaching and how you built your business. And also we're going to talk about the topic we chose, which is how to move forward fearlessly,
Yeah.
which is like really close to you, the topic. So before you get into the topic, I would love to know more about how Ericka James built a business and what motivated you starting helping business owners and entrepreneurs.
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, come to find out that my family has been entrepreneurs on both sides of my parents'
Mhm.
family for 3 to 5 generations, which is given American history of Black folks,
Yeah.
it's no joke. And so it's literally in my blood. But when I really got bit by the entrepreneurial bug, I remember being in kindergarten
Right.
and my parents would always drag us to the office. Oh, they started a business full time when I was 5 years old. And by the age of about 5 and a half, I could put together a training workbook in the right order. They just put us to work. If
Yeah.
you've grown up in a family business, that's just how it was. And so, but I remember being 12 years old and having a moment because every year we used to have an annual gathering at our house of all of our employees and their
Right.
families. We had a really nice sized yard. And I remember watching all of these cars pull into the driveway. And I think someone was out there parking them. And I had this moment where I was like, my parents are responsible for all of these families.
Yeah.
And I was 12 years old. And it was like this cinematic moment for me. Like I was like, whoa. And just the power, I somehow got in my bones, the power of impact you can make in a
Mm.
community, in a family, in a generational line when you provide entrepreneurial opportunities for people. And so, yeah, 12 years old. And that's when I started my first little endeavor and, started entrepreneurship. And then when I was 18, while the rest of my friends were partying and
Yeah.
doing what they were doing coming out of high school, the day I turned 18, I went and got my business license.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm starting my business. And so that's all I wanted to do was build this powerful, business that impacted lives.
Yeah. So at the very early age, like you realize what you wanted to do and you had like a clear direction, like where headed to. A lot of people like age of even the 30, they have no clue like
I know,
what's the
right?
next step. Yeah. And you incorporated your business age of 18 and also learned business from your parents, which is incredible. And the same happened with me. Like I
Yes.
s- go into business and helping my father age of like a 9, 10 years old, and he was teaching me and everything. So and I was looking after his business even though when he was passed away, I was like age 13. And
Wow.
I did that for 2, 3 years before I moved to UK age of 16. When I became a moved to UK age of 16, I had to start over everything because my brother goes, we can't really build a business in UK. It's not really easy to start a business. We don't have funding. And
Yeah.
then my mind started going close-minded because
Okay.
in that time I didn't know YouTube existed, even though it's only 2010. I didn't know YouTube existed. So I don't know who to go and who to ask. Every
Yeah.
person I ask, my family and friends, they're like, or only business you can do is a restaurant owners or being a taxi driver or something. Then it took like 3 and 4 years before you actually find a friend because yeah, you can start a business without any money. And that's how I started network marketing and then
Yes.
restaurant, then like online business. So yeah, I can totally feel that so how was it like being in a business owner like age of 18? Did you figure out everything like how to do everything or like was it hard?
Well, at the time I had been a student leader since the age of 12,
Yeah.
always class president. And so I started kind of a leadership training
Hmm.
company. So I would go into other high schools and go work. So it was really speaking and training and leadership development for
Right.
people younger than me, because I was only 18, and my peers. So it was like I really focused on student leadership. And then I went to college. And I remember telling my parents, I said, well, I just really want to build a business. I don't want to study business. I just want to do it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, sorry, honey, you're going to school. So when I went to college, it was always speaking and training. And then very early on, got into curriculum development and always just, really wanted to see people whole, wanted to see people thriving, particularly women.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started doing. And by the age of, I think, by the time I was 18, I had developed my first training curriculum. And so I would speak and train. And so it was more like a part-time thing, but I've always had a business. It was still a side hustle because I was a student. And then when my daughter was 5, ironically, and started kindergarten, that's when I went into business full throttle, not just on the side while I'm holding down a job. And that's when, the real learning began. Because like you, I didn't have any revenue, didn't have any, funding to start. It was just sheer will and business know-how and just scrappy, just bootstrapping it. So but that's when I really learned all the big stuff. Until then, it was, it's easy when you're just booking speaking engagements and you get to do the client stuff and you have other income coming in, right? That's a lot easier. And so, but it was being a single mom, building the businesses that I really got the boots on the ground.
Yeah, and plus it's a learning process, isn't it? Like the more you do it, like the more you learn about it. Similar to like being a doctor and lawyer, you don't become a pro like when you just getting started or get into doctor school or law school. Right. You have to go through step by step. Then you eventually become a pro and more like a, what you're talking about, how you're running a business is like doing your chores at home, like changing a bed sheet.
Right. That's true.
So like how long have you been in coaching business owners, like entrepreneurs?
Interesting. So again, I started first as speaker and trainer.
Right.
And then I sat down, started to say, okay, if I could go whatever's coming, I really want to get, interestingly enough, I wanted to get off the stage, and I was interested in transformation, not just inspiration or motivation. And so this was 21 years ago. And I said, I want to work alongside people. I'm really great at helping people access their greatness and then manifest something powerful and build something. And I didn't even have the language, Russell. I was like, well, I don't know what you call it, but I want to walk alongside people. And so I started studying and researching and found the world of professional personal coaching. And at the time in the States, there was only 6 coaching schools, and one of them happened to be in the Seattle area where I lived. Right. And so immediately I signed up for training classes, and I knew this was what I wanted to, do alongside of the training and the curriculum and the workshops. I wanted to be able to go deeper with people and really see them transformed and get all the gunk out of the way. And not, I was so tired of seeing people, in response to stuff, our issues or our past, or what if we could clean that up? And what if we could really become the fullness of who we were created to be? Like, that is fascinating to me. And that's really why I got into coaching and going a little bit deeper. And I always, stayed doing the speaking and the training and all that. But that's what got really powerful. And then from there, moved to courses, because I needed to figure out. And this was, I'm talking years ago. I mean, there was only teleclass lines. If you, early adopter, because I was a single parent. And as a keynote speaker and a trainer, I knew I couldn't travel like other people could. And I said, I've got to figure out how to bring the world to me. And so that's what got me online very, very early, before all the software existed and you used to have to write your own HTML. And so that's what got me. And then I was able to partner with people, but then provide courses and different things for residual income, because my goal is always to make money while I am not actively working. So,
that's great. That's a great journey you have had. And also still in the process of doing that. So let's get into like the topic what we're going to discuss, which is like how to move forward fearlessly. So in terms of like this term, like what does it actually mean, like moving forward with the fearlessly? I know like the word sound simple, it just like keep moving forward. But when is actually let's moving forward fearlessly for entrepreneurs, especially like we're having like right now COVID and everything, a lot of businesses is going out of businesses, a lot of businesses struggling, not enough revenue. And probably another thing we are seeing, like in industry disruption. So a lot of businesses making a change from retail to like it going on online, and they have to move forward. And then at the same time, they're fearful because those people like been 20, 30 years in a business and never knew like how online things operate, how return operates, and they have to learn new things. So can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. And so again, I mentioned earlier, I'm into transformation, not motivation. So, I often hear, oh, fear is false evidence appearing real. And, just have fear and strap it in and be courageous and do it anyway. And I like to get to the root of things. What
Right.
if we actually could be without fear?
Yeah.
Where it doesn't cross your mind, it's not part of your it's not part of what you have to overcome. You're constantly thinking about solutions, like, okay, here's the reality of what I'm dealing with. How can I make shifts? What do I need to learn? What do I need to do? And we can do that without fear. And that's been one of my great obsessions. Like, you know and whether we have or have not, that is the key. Whether we've got resources in our hand or not, we can
Yeah.
be fearless. And fear is not something that's made up in the mind. It's not something we can talk ourselves out of. It really is a spirit or a dark energy.
Yeah.
I always bring the little spiritual pieces in because we're mind, body, and spirit beings. And so it's about understanding, first of all, when are we having fear, right? Because most people are so accustomed to fear, we don't even know how to identify it.
Yeah.
And so there's evidence of it: procrastination, worry, stress, double-mindedness, where you feel strong on Tuesday, but by Friday you're freaking out. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. By 3 o'clock, I'm good. And then by 7 o'clock, you're freaking out again. Lack of focus is huge. And so if you're having any of those issues, typically it's because you're dealing with fear, which gets into our mind, our body, our spirit, and it clogs everything.
Yeah.
I was being asked the other day in an interview, what's the top thing that stops people? It's fear. And then the more fear that's happening in the world, the more we internalize.
True.
And so the first part, I mean, it really is the inside job, is we've got to strengthen our minds to think in solutions and then to take command over that fear. Like, okay, that's evidence that I'm in fear. I'm procrastinating. Disorganization is another one, when we're not able to plan and think straight. And so that's huge. And so becoming aware of it, speaking to it, like I will sit in my office by myself and be like, oh no, fear, that's not happening today. You can just go on.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to manage you. Like I really want to stay fearless, because it takes 10 to 15 times more energy to manage fear and overcome it and do it scared and all the things the world tells you, versus let's stop and deal with it. And and sometimes it's easier when you've come through things you need to overcome, because like you have evidence that, wait a minute, we did this with nothing. We built this, we've seen hard before.
Yeah.
And so if you have that place to go back to, you can actually use that as an arsenal in your toolbox. And then, but taking command over it, Russell, is so important. Do not let fear linger. Really speak to it and release it. Breath is important. Let that energy out, because it's a real thing that clogs your mind. It clogs your ability to think, and it clogs your ability to take action. So that's the first thing. And I really want people to know you really can be free from fear.
Yeah. So do you think like fear happens because of unknown? Like we're dealing with the unknown, could be anything. Could be like how's my appointments going to go today, or could be how's the month gonna look like in a revenue wise, or could be like how's everything's going on in the whole world. Is 2020 going to be my year or not? And that would be like fearful. Is the government making any changes? Is it going to be another lockdown? Or a lot of issues there. And I'm starting a new business and I have no experiences. Am I going to keep my clients happy? Am I able to sell the product I'm trying to sell? So a lot of fears is like unknown. We don't know. So do you think is it really affecting like moving forward with our growth?
Oh, it is. I mean, so much of fear is unknown. The main fears are fear of unknown, fear of success. Believe it or not, most people fear success more than they fear failure. and then a fear in a lack of belief in our ability and capability. So many people are still processing, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, can I do this? All of that. So fear even of your own greatness,
Right.
and that. So all of those things can absolutely stop you. And the more fear that you're experiencing, the more you start paying attention to what could go wrong. And when your fear diminishes, you're like, look, there might just be a lane that if we can knock this lane out, forget all these other things, we can maneuver through this. But when you're in fear, you have a hard time seeing your options.
It just paralyzes you, isn't it?
It really does. It really does.
It's like you had a car accident and you don't know what to do. And that kind of situation is like giving you a shock when you got fears and you get blindsided. You can't really see the way out from the situation. And most of the cases what I experience, it's just everything we created ourselves. Like 10% is a reality, 90% of the time we creating the fear ourselves. Can you explain a little bit on that?
Absolutely. It's like fear itself, we give it the power that it gets. I mean, anytime you're dealing with energy, the more energy you give something, the more it grows, the bigger it gets. And we really can make fear a giant in our lives. There's always variables to manage in business. There's always things, there's always unknown. But to me, if we can do what I call your self-work, where you know how to pull down those thoughts within 10 seconds. I call it having a Teflon mind. You can pull down a negative thought within 10 seconds and reverse that thought. And if you can do that, you can keep your options open, and you can move forward in a way that you're not freaking out by every shift of the world, because right now we may be in pandemic, but in 2 years it'll be something else, and then industry shifts, and as soon as you think you have your footing, another shift happens. And so to me, the most important work you can do is build yourself as an entrepreneur. Build your mind, build your resilience, build your belief in yourself, and your belief in your people. And then really, I'm not about just cover the fear and keep it moving. We really have to say, I am experiencing fear. What are you afraid of? When you begin to name it, it stops being such a giant, because it seems like you're afraid of everything. No, really, what are you afraid of? I'm afraid we're going to run out of resources and I'm going to have to lay people off. Great. Now that you can identify your fear, you actually can begin to think in terms of solutions, of possibilities, and of options, instead of this giant that, oh my God, I don't know where this is going to come from. How am I going to make payroll? That, all of those things that panic. And it's amazing what happens, because, what we begin to think and put out there, what gets in our heart becomes what we manifest. And so what you focus on manifests. And so if you're focusing on fear, those very things that you're fearing, we actually we're feeding them.
Do you think writing down all of your fears in a piece of paper or like a notepad on your phone, and then have like a positive side of it as well, like write down all of the negative things that you're coming out of it, and then at the same time write on another page or like next to each other, like what positive things could happen, that could like it gives you a motivation or like a sense of like you're dealing with the fear, right?
That's the very first exercise I went through. I said, I'm making and this was, 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago. What am I really afraid of? And then that's when my spirituality kicked in, because I said, if I believed God for this, if I had faith around this, if I could believe in something that has not yet manifested, would I still be in fear? If I believed in myself, would I still be in fear? And then what I did is I reversed each of those things. To this day, if I'm overcoming a thought, I will post up, I write stuff out, I post it up so I can begin to reprogram. And then the other really key part of overcoming fear is shifting, how do I say this? Shifting your emotional attachment to it.
Right.
So if you have a negative attachment to something, you're going to resist that. But if you can start to think positively, if you can start to say, I don't know how, because fear isn't about knowing how, right? We still don't always know how. but it's about, there's a way, I just haven't figured it out yet. Or I haven't had that aha moment. But if I'm willing to sit, be still, tell myself the truth about it, and then take command over the energy of fear and start and release it from our body, we actually can start to see clearly. But that is an awesome exercise. And it's one that I've trained myself in how to pull down fear in 10 seconds or less. That's all it can stay, 10 seconds or less. But I always identify it. I don't run from it. And the very fear is what I lean into, because on the other side of that is the solution.
Yeah. So you're like a mostly solution-oriented approach rather than like being scared of and stepping back from the certain situation. You more like have like a focus on how to deal with the situation. I know I'm dealing with that kind of thing, and I'm fearful as well. That thing goes right way, wrong way, and have no clear path how I'm gonna get there. But let's find out how I can get there instead of like worrying about it, right?
Yep. And just remember, fear is just, it's an opportunity to overcome something. Most of us have done hard before. Like we have overcome stuff that we couldn't even believe we lived through, and we're still here. And just because we haven't thought of the solution does not mean it doesn't exist. And then the other thing fear really does is it stops us from focusing.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge piece of, eliminating distractions and helping yourself stay as focused as possible, because fear will scatter you, get you into overwhelm, and you can just begin to squander and go in circles like you're on a merry-go-round, not going forward.
Yeah, it just deactivated your brain neurons and everything. So you can't really process how you're supposed to be processing. If you're fearful and have a negative worrying about certain things, like probably you're going to give it 100% or something. You're only working on a 20% capacity, 80% of draining your energy because of the back of your head, the worry, the fear. And also, like you mentioned on the podcast as well, fear of success. So not many people talks about that, fear of success. How does it actually impact us in moving forward with our life or achieving bigger goals?
Well, one of the huge keys as entrepreneurs, is you've got to have a vision.
Yeah.
You've got to have an idea. You don't necessarily know how you're going to get there, but you want to know and have an idea of what the end could bring, of what could your business look like? What is the possibility of that? Where are you focusing? And to me, I lock in on the vision. I do not let circumstances derail me. I do not let any of that stop me. I lock in on the vision. And when you do that, you don't have to fear it, because it's now just a part of you. And I'm sometimes shocked, especially more micro entrepreneurs, how they don't have a vision. They're just trying to survive their business, make sure their family can eat, those type of things. But it gets you out of survival mode when you're like, okay, I have a fear of success. Well, you need to look at that and what's really going on. And it typically is I have a fear of responsibility of if I really have to grow my business, now I'm responsible for people's livelihoods, or whatever it is. What is really going on? And then paint the picture. And then we have to shift how we emotionally attach to it, which will shift our brain pathways and all of that. So if there is fear of the big vision that you have, then you've got to reground that. Well, what would it feel like? And I really spend time doing this in my quiet time. What would it feel like for this to happen?
Right.
What would it feel like? And if it's a positive association, we're going to lean into it. If it's a negative one, we are going to resist it every time. And so you've got to reground, fear of success with really joy of the possibility of success.
Yeah.
And you've got to see it. I mean, that you've got to have that vision in front of you and able to access it, because the world is crazy and it's looking crazier every day. What I mean? So you've got to have your focus and be able to dispel other people's naysaying, their words, their doubts. It just becomes irrelevant the more you focus on the vision.
Yeah, vision is important. That's what helps you not worrying about too much about your fear and everything. It just helps you, guide you through where you want to be. And most people don't have that. As the beginning of the year, most entrepreneur and business owners, they don't have any written plan for the whole year or even the 5 years vision, and they don't know where they want to be. just traveling around, started a new
Yeah,
business, and there is no step by step how I find my customers, how am I going to expand my team, where can I look, and when should I look, and why is the actual plan in terms of like in your growth. So if you don't have any growth in the 100 plan, then obviously you'll be fearful, right?
absolutely you will. And that's where that unknown sneaks in because you haven't casted that vision. You haven't even
Yeah.
forecasted. I'll talk to entrepreneurs that sometimes are in fear, like, well, I can't forecast because I don't know what it's going to look like.
Mm,
You have to have an intention. You have to have a roadmap. I mean, otherwise you end up anywhere.
yeah.
And so that the more you plan, I have that written down, like to focus in, you've got to have that plan. You've got to not just say, oh, this is how much I want to make this year. How are you going to do that?
Yeah.
X number of sales, X this, how are you going to do that? What is it going to cost you? But really taking time to sit down, which is funny. I usually try to do it at the end of the previous year,
Mhm.
but lost some time with sickness. And so I'm talking to all of my mentees, all of my members this week in my organization saying, you guys, before the end of the month, sit down and plan. I'm talking your social media, your revenue, your team plans,
Yeah.
what are your top 3 goals? What do you need to focus on every quarter? And then really planning stuff out. And I really encourage people to plan down to the week. And so, you may not do it all 52 weeks, but at least for the next 3 months, if you have a plan, you have something to focus on, and fear
Yeah.
doesn't feel so overwhelming. Fear
Yeah.
doesn't feel so
You're
overwhelming.
just
Yeah.
breaking it down in a chunk. So that's how like you made it easy for you. So you mentioned like a revenue goal. Some wants to make it 250,000 and they only made last year 20,000 and 30,000. They'll be fearful and they'll be overwhelmed. Like, how can I achieve that? But when you
Yeah.
actually write it down, it's not that big. It's like $20,000 a month and then $5,000 a week. And what I need to do if you're selling $5,000 product, sell one a week,
Yes.
then it's not that bad, like comparing to you seeing the giant vision, giant goal and not trying to achieve it, right?
And I think baby steps, those, breaking it down into small chunks, that's hard for entrepreneurs because most of us are leapers. We're designed to
Yeah.
leap, not step. And so you really have to take that time to just think, because I truly believe that we've got these blueprints inside of us. And if you just stop to take the time to think and take your eyes off of all the world freaking out, because that's
Yeah.
key, because that'll keep you in fear, and focus in. Because the other thing that's happening to businesses that are able to do that is they are expanding, they are growing.
Yeah.
They are taking, the entrepreneurs are taking time to think. We heard it at the beginning of the pandemic a lot. We're pivoting, but you're able to see possibility when you couldn't before. And I can't talk enough about focus. Focus is one of the key tools to come against fear when you're dealing really, to eliminate your distractions
Yeah.
and make sure you're clear what you're saying yes to, but even more importantly, what are you saying no to? Because distractions will keep you in fear because you can't get the time on task you need to actually execute. And so I can't talk enough about fearlessness and focus and how they go side by side.
Yeah, let's talk about focus. I'm interested as well, and this is one of the part of thing I really like most as well, because when I started my career, I used to travel around like I'm doing one thing, two things at the same time, or I'm doing this business and that business, and none of the business is growing exponentially like how I wanted. Then I had to regroup and find like which thing I'm good at, which one is working for me, and where is my passion at. And then I just clearly one focused, and that's why my business grew from zero to like $1 million company now within like less than 3 years. But before that, I was like doing one thing here, one thing there. I'm just trying to sell something on eBay. I'm trying to sell something on Amazon, and I'm doing online marketing in the same time, and nothing is going nowhere. Then had to regroup and find my focus. So entrepreneurs like always looking for like a shiny object. They see something, and especially like a new internet world, YouTube and everything, Facebook, there's a new random gurus telling you something, oh, you need to start this business, you get into Bitcoin, you need to get into NFTs and so many other things where the most focus you needed, where it's actually making you money, right? You can triple your income and 5 times the income. So how can someone like stay focused on their game and build something meaningful next 5 years and 10 years?
It's so good. Well, I gotta, I tell people, know your distractions. There's 3 types of distractions. There are self-sabotaging distractions where that's fear-based, where I'm really scared. I don't believe in my own greatness or my ability to pull this off. So I'm just going to constantly sabotage myself.
Yeah.
There's controllable distractions, and then there's uncontrollable distractions. So if you can eliminate the self-sabotage, if you can eliminate the controllable distractions, you have the ability to turn your cell phone off and not be distracted by that text or that call. We have the ability to control our environments, but with so much technology jumping at us all the time, you can feel like you're always at effect. You always have to respond. And so those things are controllable. We can control, certain, what I call the gateways, where the drama comes in. Then there's uncontrollable. There's going to be, your class shut down and you have to now teach your kids for the day, or, those are things that you cannot control. And if those are the only things we're managing, we can do this, because you can begin to eliminate distractions. So I am absolutely serious about guarding my time. And about, I don't even pick up the phone. I have to get the stuff out. I need to get out before I let other people come in and distract me. And then my parents used to call me hard-headed, Russell. And that meant that, you don't listen to anybody. And it served me well as an adult, because I don't let chatter in. I do things to balance and, take some time off, but I control my distractions, and it gives me the space I need, because I am building multiple things and it's easily overwhelming. And so I really am serious about my time and guarding those distractions, and having, structures for success set up, so I can support my own success and not get into, there's always, the vision is always huge. And so just to take that down in bite-sized chunks is a lot. And then dealing with people in business, we've got so many things that can distract us, but eliminating distractions. You said knowing what you're good at. You got to know your genius and be able to provide time to function in your genius every single day. And you'll be able to watch your business move forward. And then we'll hear it again and again, but we need time to think as entrepreneurs, so you can think, and get rid of the fear, and you can actually take time to think and have those insightful aha moments that come with business.
And also take the action. Like, action is important. So when you have like a thought, you figure out like what's the solution for certain fears you have, and taking the action, that momentum builds up. The more you're gonna overcome the certain things, then obviously is like, it gives you the more momentum. Like when I started a business, there's a fearful, like, this thing's going to work or not, like I mentioned, and that's why I'm doing 2 or 3 businesses in the same time. But when I start seeing the results is happening and focusing on one thing, the momentum builds up. Then I had my trust on myself. Right now it's not unknown anymore. It's like, I know if I talk to X amount of people, I'm going to make X amount of money. Probably not the time frame I wanted to. Probably not in 30 days, could be happening in 60 days or 90 days, but it eventually happen. This is the maths and this is how it works. Then you're not fearful anymore. Like is going to happen eventually. Then you put more time in, more effort in. Probably you're doubling the hours and you know what's going on. But when you actually don't see the results, don't put any action in, and then we like, oh, why am I in trouble now? I don't know that this thing is going to work or not. Then we double it around. Then we lose focus, right? We don't take any action. Then we scroll through social media, browsing through new windows, then distracted totally. And the whole day is gone, especially in the coaching business, right? In coaching business, you have to be focused, right? Your goal is like you're doing prospecting or finding a new clients or training them your existing one. But if you're doing a customer service, because you're fearful if you can sell your program or not, then eventually you're wasting your time in a customer service where someone else can do the job, and you losing your time, and you get into watching your cat videos and YouTube videos and wasting the whole day.
Yeah, that's really true. And now I don't do so much private work, but now I really move courses and build memberships so people can. I've got a business women's training organization. I've got a mentorship program, because I'm just built for masses. So I used what I learned as a private coach to now train leaders and lead leaders. And that's what I'm really focusing in on, which is fun.
Yeah, that's great. So lastly, I'll ask you, like, do you have any step-by-step guide to overcome the fear and move forward? Do you kind of certain steps, like step one, step two, do you kind of follow anything like that?
I
If you have
do actually.
fear with something, certain
Yeah,
things.
yeah, I really do. The first is you've got to become aware of it.
Hmm.
Don't hide from it. You know what I mean? Like we don't talk about fear. We like, duct tape on top of it or band-aid on top of it.
Yeah,
And it's like, no, 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 wait, this is for real fear I'm dealing with. So you've got to identify, what am I afraid of?
right.
And I always, like you mentioned earlier, that exercise, I write it down. What am I afraid of? What's going on? And I know for me, if there's any fear stirring up, it's because I'll tend to move into overwhelm.
Yeah,
Like, oh my gosh, it's just too much. I've got too much to do. The vision is too big. That's when I know I'm fearing something. And a lot of times in business as a single mom, it was not having enough resources. It was like,
mm,
how am I going to do all this and send my daughter to school and do all those things? So identify what you're afraid of, and so it doesn't become a giant. And then secondly, I tell people, really speak to that fear. Like, oh no, we're not doing that today, fear. You're going to have to go someplace else. Like, really take command over that fear and use your breath and release it. Let it go, so it's not living in your mind, in your body, in your inner spirit anymore.
yeah,
Really use breath to release the energy, because it's a dark energy that lowers, we already talked about all the results of it.
yeah,
And then really building your mind, having what I call that Teflon mind that can transform a negative thought into possibility. And it's
mm.
fascinating because I've trained myself so well. My daughter is the exact opposite. She's 26 now. So now I'm really working on training her to reframe. How can you think about that differently? What are the opportunities in that? Because she's always half glass empty. And I'm like, wait a minute, what if it wasn't? And
Yeah,
so really try on the possibility and put some vision to it. Even though you may be fearing resources, imagine, use your imaginary ability to vision and say, what would it feel like? What if I had all the resources I needed?
mm,
So you can lean into that instead of focusing on what you don't have. You got to focus on what you do have. And then you got to execute. You got to block out those distractions, and you've got to execute. There is nothing that gets rid of fear faster than building.
yeah,
You get a result and you're like, wait, that worked. I picked up the phone. I made 5 calls. 3 of them said yes. Well, if I can make 5 calls, can I make 15 calls? And there's
yeah,
just nothing that eliminates fear like a proven track record. And
yeah,
so much of it, I think you said a statistic earlier, 80 to 90% of it's in our mind.
yeah,
And so,
definitely.
and it stops us from action. If you can get to the action, you can pull yourself out of fear every single time.
Yeah, also like having like a free time makes it like a more fearful, because this is the time you're creating your 90% of the negative thoughts, right? So if you keep moving forward, keeping you busy and doing the action you needed to do, then you're gonna see like more positive outcomes, and that boosts you up, and you more less likely you're gonna think about negative stuff and more focus on the positive stuff, right?
And then the last thing is, really watching what you're taking in, right?
Yeah.
So every single show you're watching on Netflix is about death and murder and fear, and people get, like all the world stuff, or
Yeah.
you're inundated by the world's news or all the negativity. You internalize that.
Hmm.
And so I'm very careful about the things that I watch. Or if I do watch something like, woo, that was fear-based, then I take some time to release that. So I didn't take any of that in.
Yeah.
And I absolutely stay away from fearful people, because I think fear is like secondhand smoke. People will breathe it all over you. And
Yeah.
so I stay away from fearful people. I have low tolerance for people that have fear speak. I don't have time. And so I
Hmm.
really manage my relationships really closely too. So those are just some tactical, practical things people can do.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So,
Yeah.
Ericka, we are running out of time for this podcast. It was great to learn from you and also discussing about how to move forward with when we are fear in the mood. So, yeah, I appreciate it. So, those who's listening, if they want to reach out to you and know more about your program or learn more about you, how they can find out.
Yes, best way to reach me is through my website. You can go to Ericka James, and I spell my name Ericka James.com. or on Instagram, I'm at Ericka Speaks. And so, yeah, by all means, have a ton of programs, products, courses, have my show, the Ericka James Show, Life on Purpose. So I would love to connect with your audience and help people move into fearlessness.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So I wish you good luck with your business, with your career, also with your podcast. And you have like a wonderful year, 2022, which has just started. I always say like a 2020 because I was still on a 2020 zone. So yeah, I hope you have like a wonderful year and stay safe and stay healthy.
And thank you for everything you do to inspire and impact lives every day. You are an inspiration.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So that's a wrap, guys. You know how to find Ericka. So go check out on our website and check out our podcast as well. So I'm going to leave those of the links on below this podcast so you can reach out to her. And yeah, till then, stay safe, stay healthy. I'll talk to you in the next episode. Thank you, guys.